Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are joined by Barbara Yebuga. And Barbara is more than a speaker. She is a conversation starter, a story weaver, and a catalyst for change. Combining humor, approachability, and a deep understanding of the human experience, Barbara encourages audiences to challenge their perceptions, embrace diversity, and foster a culture of inclusion. With her unique ability to foster connections, Barbara is driven by her mission to transform workplaces into more inclusive, vibrant, and equitable environments. Barbara, welcome to Madness Cafe. We are so excited to talk to you. Heart.
Thank you, ladies. I'm so happy to be here with both of you. Really, it's such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Barbara, tell us about you and how did you get started in this type of work?
Ooh, well, to tell you about me, I mean, do you want alphabetically and category?
All
There's
of it.
so much.
Whatever the spirit brings forth.
Whatever the spirit brings forth. Well,
yes.
So my name is Barbara Yebuga. Barbara Ruth Munduru Yebuga is my full name. Born and raised in Toronto, Canada.
Very cool.
That's home for me. Yes, I come from a big family. I'm one of 5 children. There's 7 of us in the household. So always busy. I learned how to share and patience really quickly, as being the middle child. Shout out to all the middle children out there. Middle child syndrome is a thing. It's real. Research it. Sidebar. So that was kind of my dynamic. Big family, lots of noise. I was quite active into ice skating and gymnastics and brownies. And I was one of those girls, just always into extracurricular activities. I think it was my parents' tactic to keep us out of trouble. That was kind of my upbringing. And I've just always been someone who's really, I have a deep love for people. I don't know how else to say it. I'm fascinated by humans. I'm one of those people, I love watching documentaries, whether it's of Mother Teresa or Hitler. I'm fascinated by how people's minds work, whether they use it for the ultimate good or ultimate evil. I'm just fascinated by human behavior. And I actually am fascinated by just how we're able to influence and how we are actually able to create real change. And so anyone that's been able to do that, again, for good or for evil, I'm interested. I want to understand that. My goal is for ultimate goal, good. Let me be clear about that. I want to learn how we can do ultimate good. And I think there's a lot we can learn from our history as far as whereas we as humans got it wrong. That's my passion and what drives a lot of the work I do. I'm just genuinely interested in people's stories, their backgrounds, their history, just history in general. And so fast forward to being an adult, I mean, I did my undergrad in, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies, and public relations was also a big part of my studies and writing. I did a lot of writing for Huffington Post, and I'm a new author now. Woot woot. I just had my first published book that's now in the Canadian school system. And again, about
congratulations.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's kind of a project that came together. It was a passion project turned to this, got attention. Pearson Publishing reached out and said, "Hey, we see what you're doing. Can you write some stories for us and write some content for us for our school curriculum?" I am, again, fascinated with humans and our history, and I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunities. Let me say it politically correct. A lot of missed opportunities for us to learn about the diversity of our history, our history. I don't really even say Black history or Asian history, or it's our history. It's history, right? So I'm fascinated with that. So that's what drove, the book that I wrote, Trailblazers in Canada. It's right up there. And it's
there it is.
Let's
shameless
see it.
plug. Yeah, I'll have to bring it up so I can hold it. I guess I should do that,
yeah,
right?
do that.
Let me do that. This is where you're gonna have to edit, Jen. You're gonna have to edit this.
That's fine. Or not, because I kind of like this part. Darn, I wish I had gotten a copy. I would have.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll get one soon.
Oh, yeah, same. It's a beautiful cover.
Trailblazers in Canada.
Cover.
Thank you.
I do not know a whole lot about Canada and trailblazers. Who is someone we should know about from your book?
Oh, there's so many people. There's so many people. I don't know whether to start with. Like, the Blackburns actually was one story that I was fascinated, isn't the word. I was a bit obsessed. I'm just gonna call it what it is.
Okay.
They were the first, before Uber, as we
Mhm.
know, or Lyft. They were the first to create an like Uber taxi service in Toronto.
Oh,
And I believe
cool.
actually the first in Canada. And so
Oh,
the
wow.
story of this couple that came from the southern United States,
Mhm.
escaping slavery, came, north of the border up to Canada and started this whole this life. And they actually made through Detroit, actually, in Michigan, and made their way
Mhm.
up to Canada, into Ontario. And they are just a couple that I'm all about love. I love love. I love a romantic story, and what this couple were able to do considering their context.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. And so I have a lot of stories like that in this. It's like a collection of short stories. Yeah, shameless plug. Get your copy. But
Yeah.
yeah, shameless plug. Get your copy. Get your copy at pearsoncanada.ca. Okay, it's a great story. And also, I know, I'm from Canada, America. We share our history is
Yeah.
kind of one and the same as far as
Mhm.
how we've evolved as people, and the relationship between Canada and America. It's a lot of these folks came from the States and
Mhm.
came up, right? So, but to answer, back to your question, Jennifer, I know it's been going around about. I got into the work that I'm doing because I'm really passionate about people, and I just saw a lot of opportunities for us to really leverage the diversity of people
Mhm.
that we have in our community, and then to look at ways that we can work more inclusively, because studies have shown that when people feel like they belong, they're included, engagement goes up,
Yep.
innovation goes up, talent retention, the numbers are positive. So just from a business perspective, I'm always talking about that. I think sometimes in the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion work, there can be a misconception that it's all about, holding hands, singing
Mhm.
kumbaya, love and light. And while I am definitely for that, that is my default. I'm a lover of people. I can't say that enough. There's a very strong business case as to why organizations, leaders need to be prioritizing DEI and how they run their
Mhm.
organizations and their business. So
Mhm.
that in a nutshell, really quickly, is what I what I'm about, who I am.
Now, here in the US, there's a whole lot of backlash to DEI work for a number of political reasons and
Mhm.
some cultural ones. How has it been in Canada doing DEI work? Has it been any easier there?
I don't know if it's gone easier. I think the politics that we're dealing with up here
Mhm.
may be slightly different, but we're such an integrated world now. And
Mhm.
I think these artificial borders that, shout out to our colonizers, have created, more and more are not holding the strength it had before. We are breaking these borders, and we're realizing we are actually more one global
Mhm.
country, one unit. And so what's happening, whether it's south of the border, whether it's overseas, whether it's in Gaza, it's affecting us. And so the
Yeah.
conversations are still there. And if anything, I think people more now than ever need to have the tools to have difficult conversations,
Yes.
right? And how to
Mhm.
engage. And
Mhm.
for me, I always say my kind of northern star is, Brene Brown. I love Brene
Yeah.
Brown. And
We
one of the
love
things
her.
she we love, yes, we're fans.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
One of the things I appreciate her saying is, we're not here to be right, we're here to get it right. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that, because I think, to your point, Raquel, as far as the challenges in the DEI space, there's a lot of, I don't know if it's like woke uppityness. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah,
Or,
Oh,
say it.
yeah,
yes,
you
Say
right?
can
it.
Like,
say
Totally
it.
say it.
there's this
Mhm.
sense of, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm going to
Mhm.
prove you wrong, or I just want you to convert to the way I think or the way I live.
Yep.
And that's not my goal in the work that I do. I'm not here to convince people of how I live or what my faith practices are. I quite frankly don't really care if you like me or not. I'm not here for
Mhm.
that. I just want us to live in a world, in a space where, we're doing it equitably, right?
Right.
Give me the same chances that Mr. John Smith has, right? Give me the same opportunities. I'm not even asking for handouts. I just want us to level the playing field as much as we can, starting with our Indigenous brothers, sisters, and families, starting there. That is really my goal. I'm not here to convince or to convert. Can we agree we should all treat each other the way we'd like to be treated? Can we agree to that? Don't hit me, I won't hit you. So I feel like we have to get back to the foundational like playground rules, back when we were in, kindergarten.
Yes.
How can we play nicely in the sandbox?
Yes, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to remember the lessons we were taught as little kids. Play nice in the sandbox.
Yes.
Which is really hard to do when we have so much global strife. How do you take what's going on out there in the world in terms of war? And it's not just the recent wars that they're talking about, it's all these wars that are happening all the time. That's going on in the global world. And then you're going into the workplace talking about equity. How do you balance those things?
Well, that's a great question, Jennifer. And I think I don't even know if balance is the right word. I think now organizations are realizing we can't separate what's going on in the world and what we're seeing in the news. We can't separate that from the work. We can't expect employees and our teammates and our leaders to come to work showing up, their best selves when they have family members that are dying as a result from this, right? Where they're struggling to even put food on their table because our government has decided to use our resources elsewhere. That's a different podcast episode. Won't get into it.
Yeah.
Right? So we really need to have a bit more empathy, as far as what people are dealing with, the weight of what they're dealing with. I was speaking with, a wonderful woman, and she said, Barb, I'm struggling to focus at work right now. My kids just got a bomb threat because of the politics going on in the world. And I'm supposed to show up to work and be attentive and meet these deadlines and work
and
overtime.
leave it at the door.
Okay, that concept right there, leave it at the door, that's outdated. I'm sorry, but when was anyone even capable of doing that?
I never was.
That part.
No.
So that's why I say, no, there's no, your question, Jennifer, as far as how are we balancing it, I don't even believe in work-life balance. I'm more of like work-life integration. I don't leave my Barb hat at home and say, okay, we're work mode now. Okay, now I'm gonna go be a partner. Where's my partner hat? Okay, now I'm gonna be a community member. Where's my community member hat? No,
it doesn't work.
It does not
it really
work.
doesn't.
It's not sustainable. We're not made as humans. That's not how we're created, right? So to answer your question again, Jennifer, as far as how to balance it more, I think now organizations are realizing we can't separate people, and their real realities, life challenges from the work they do. So now it's been about building and creating resources and systems that support individuals so that they can show up to work, right? What does it need? Whether it's flexibility, whether it's counseling hours, let's look at our benefit packages, our total rewards packages as employees to see, okay, what are our employees really, what do they really need, right? And that always goes back for me. Look at the numbers, look at research, look at the studies so that we're intentionally serving our fellow community members, our employees, our teammates, etc.
The companies who are really embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion, what types of things are they offering for their employees, for their team members?
So I've seen various things. I've seen, giving folks a half day Fridays so that they can take the balance of that time to do whatever, be with their families, go for therapy. I've seen leaders proactively book off time in their calendars for therapy. So just like if I was your leader, Raquel, and we have our one-on-ones every weekly, I'm proactively booking time in your calendar to go for therapy. And that's actually part of your performance review. So I'm going to come to you at the end of the year and say, okay, Raquel, great, all these numbers, you met these targets. Thank you, wonderful. When it comes to your individual development, how many hours of therapy have you done? Right?
Wow.
So that's something that I'm seeing some leaders do, which I am a huge advocate for. Therapy, just offering extra hours, free hours. I know Green Shield up here in Canada has been offering that additional hours for individuals, but also couples therapy as well.
Wow.
Appreciating the fact that in this day and age, the traditional husband and wife is not necessarily the dynamic of a lot of family, right? So
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
common law families, for blended families, how are we extending our packages, our benefit packages to the that family dynamic, right? So there's
Wow.
there's a plethora of ways. I just encourage leaders to actually take the time to do the focus groups, do the
Mhm.
research, hire external consultants to again understand the unique needs of your community, of your
Mhm.
team, of your employee, demographic, to really understand what are the unique needs, because it's not a one shoe fits all. And I think
Yeah.
a
Right.
lot of companies are understanding that and now are being a bit more flexible in their offerings.
Mhm.
So folks have that, agency to pick resources and support that fits for them.
Okay, so one thing that comes up for me when you're talking about this, and talking about leaders and heads of companies
Mhm.
doing what's right for their employees, I think of, do these employees feel safe actually communicating what they need? Because in order to do that, there's some vulnerability that has to happen there. And if you don't trust
Good
your
call.
manager or your boss or the head of your company to that extent with that kind of information, then you can't really tell them all of what you need. How are you creating those safe spaces so that the employees can actually tell them what they need?
I love that question, Raquel. Do you understand me? I love that question. Why do I love that question? Because of that is pretty much the crux or the foundation of the work I do, is constantly
Mm,
trying to create psychological safety,
hmm.
knowing that it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Knowing that really actually no one can really guarantee psychological safety, especially when you're dealing with the kind of sensitive topics and issues that and controversial topics that often come up in the DEI space.
Hmm.
But what can we do? Again, I work a lot with leaders,
Hmm.
so I do a lot of executive coaching, a lot of one-on-one coaching, workshopping with leaders specifically.
Hmm.
And I always my number one advice, feedback, recommendation is lead by example.
Hmm.
If I'm seeing my leader blocking off time in their calendar and saying, "Okay, guy, I'm unavailable, folks, for the next
Hmm.
hour because I am going for therapy,"
Hmm.
or showing that vulnerability even. So a very specific example was I remember working for a leader and really admired her. She was very driven, focused. I'm like, I'm looking at her as far as like this is my trajectory. I'm following
Yeah.
what she's doing. And she's, married with young children, and she had a family emergency with one of her young children, and it was quite frightening. Quite
Hmm.
frightening. And I remember in the midst of her going back and forth to the hospital visits, she was still trying to fit in our meetings, and she was apologizing profusely for me missing meetings and calls. And I had a moment and I kind of snapped on her. And I snapped because while she thought she was exemplifying a leader that's showing up and is going to do whatever she can to show up and support her team, what I saw was, oh, this is not a safe space for me to be a mom, to have
Yeah.
children. Because if you're telling me
Hmm.
your child is in the hospital and it was almost life threatening, it pretty much was actually life threatening. At the end of it, we realized if you're still struggling to balance work and you're still trying to figure out how you can show up for your team and work, I'm sorry. If I'm in your shoes, if my daughter, my child had any emergency like that, I
Hmm.
don't want to hear anything from anyone. I'm not apologizing to anyone. I am
Yeah.
where I need to be with my family, with my child, to
Yep.
ensure that is top
Right.
priority. And
Yep.
Right.
so, my feedback to my leader, and fortunately she took it so gracefully. I said, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I know that you're having a complex as a leader to show up for us while juggling your family responsibilities, but it's triggering me. What you're communicating
Ah.
to me is it's not safe for me to step away from work to take care of my family situation, right? Especially something that
Hmm.
was a family emergency.
Right.
Yeah.
So to come back to answer your question, Raquel, how do we create it? We have to live by example. We have to show that it's okay to
Yeah.
step away from work when something
Hmm.
more pressing is happening, i.e., family, right?
Right.
It's okay
Right.
to block off time in your calendar for therapy, for self-care. I know a lot of some leaders, I've been encouraging them, when the weather's right in Toronto, it gets cold, but in our summer hours, go for a walk for your meeting, and
Yeah.
it'll be amazing what comes up for folks when you're walking. You just change the dynamic of a meeting
Mm-hmm.
instead of sitting in an office. Go for a walk. A lot comes out in that way. I think there's a lot of opportunity to create that psychological safety, but leaders need to lead in that
Yeah.
space. So they need to
Yeah.
be vulnerable. They need to exemplify what it looks like to have self-care, to be vulnerable, to fail. Let's
Mm-hmm.
normalize failure, right? It
Mm-hmm.
means we're trying, it means we're being innovative. So, oh yeah, I have whole workshops around that, creating psychological safety for leaders.
Well, I have to say, I just want to give kudos to you because you actually said what you needed to say to that particular boss. That you actually said, hey, this is triggering me
Yeah.
because you aren't leading by example, or the example that you're setting isn't an example that I want to follow. So kudos to you for saying that first off, because I know a lot of people wouldn't even feel comfortable saying that. In most of the places that I've worked, I wouldn't have felt comfortable saying that.
Right.
So seriously, kudos to you. I think
Mm,
it's important to note that in
mm,
that story as well.
mm. Thank you. I think
You're
it's my
welcome.
job.
Yeah.
That's my job. It's what I do. I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe also the title I carry, I will talk about that privilege I have. I have the ears of leaders. There's something about DEI advisor, whatever that
Yes.
means, or DEI specialist. You must listen to what I have to say as your DEI advisor, or you will be
Wait, with a
canceled.
cape, you're a
With a cape.
superhero with
With
a
a
cape.
superhero
Yeah.
cape, of
Mm-hmm.
course,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Dun
So
dun
we
dun
just gotta dun dun dun
dun.
dun. You shall be canceled if you don't listen to my feedback. No. So I think there is something that comes with that. There's like leaders don't want to offend. I do recognize the privilege that comes, and why I may be in a position to articulate that to leaders because of the
Mm-hmm.
role I have. It is truly my job to find ways that we can work more equitably. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It seems that you're very creative in the way that you do that too, like suggesting that they walk during a meeting, like, hey, it's a great day outside, let's go for a walk while we have this meeting. Like, I honestly have never seen anybody that I've worked for
Yeah.
and like, oh, let's just have our meeting outside and we'll just go walk. Never seen it. That's incredibly creative. That's definitely thinking outside the box.
We have to. We have to think outside. The people are tired. We're tired. We're unmotivated. We're uninspired.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that we can do to just shake it up a bit. But also there are
Love it.
studies, again, I always go back to studies.
Yeah.
There are studies
Mm-hmm.
about that, about how changing your environment, movement, that does something to
Mm-hmm.
us, So I always encourage people, like, do your research, read up on these things. We have to appreciate the neurodiversity of all of us, right? How we think, how we process
Yes.
information. So that's part of creating psychological safety is I need to be invested in, okay, how does Jennifer think? How does she process things? Again, back to that example with the leader. Her understanding of how she was showing up was, I'm showing that I'm supporting, I'm
Right.
still in the game. Like, it was all from a good place, right?
Mhm.
Right.
My context of how I was receiving it was different. So again, that's why I always encourage conversations, conversations. We can't be afraid to talk and engage, right? We can't
Mm-hmm.
be afraid of that.
Well, that's what your
Yeah.
friend Brene Brown says. The most important thing in a leader is bravery. The bravery
Yes.
to be able to have a difficult conversation, to say what needs to be said. But I understand you have a story about Oprah.
Oh, I do.
Did
The
you want to
Miss
Mm.
share?
Miss Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah. Do
Yes.
do tell.
We have an old episode about who would be our favorite guest, Oprah or Brene Brown. So we brought them both up in the same. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
those are our top two. If we could have our
If we could
guest.
have, oh
Mm-hmm.
my goodness. Well,
Absolutely.
I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of like cool people, influential people. Brene Brown is on my list. I'm yet to meet Brene Brown,
Oh.
but I did get a chance to meet and work with Oprah Winfrey, Miss Oprah Winfrey, as well as Gail King,
So
and the
jealous. So
Sydney Poitier
jealous.
and the
So
Sydney
jealous.
Poitier family. Um, yes, which that I know, Raquel. I know. I'm still, even as I say it, I'm like, oh, mic drop. Sydney Poitier's family, right?
My
Um,
mom met Sydney Poitier when she was in college, and she was the head of the speakers committee, and he was one of their speakers, and because she was the head of the committee, she went and met him at the airport and basically was leading him around. I'm sorry, this is totally off topic, but
It's
I just had to
interesting
throw that
though.
out
We'll
there.
take it.
Just had to throw that out there. So yeah,
Raquel, you and I have to stay connected because,
yes,
yeah, like I didn't get to meet actual the Sidney Poitier because by the time the film came out, he had transitioned. But it was one of the biggest honors of my life.
oh,
That's an understatement.
amazing,
Working
amazing,
with Oprah. So I get to work with a lot of fantastic clients. Toronto International
cool.
Film Festival, they're one of so I'm part of the talent relations team. So making sure I take care of the talent essentially. So the actresses, the directors, the whole gang, and making
So
sure they have a good
cool.
time. Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
it's a great time, stressful time, but a great time. And so through that work, I get to, engage and work with some fascinating people, Miss Winfrey being one of them. And this is one thing I will say about Ms. Winfrey, and I won't get into all the details. Some of it I'll keep for myself, but she's Miss Oprah
Oh
Winfrey,
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
so you can imagine the night before, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping. I told my whole team, I'm like, listen, nobody bother me. Today, this is my day. You will not mess this up for me. Nobody even look me in the eye right now. I am getting myself ready and prepared and aligned for the Ms. Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King and the Poitier family. And, people talk. There's always rumors and folks saying, oh, okay, be careful. Like, yeah, she has her persona and, out in the public, but really, like, don't look her in the eye. Don't breathe. Don't do anything around Miss
Yeah.
Winfrey. And she came and she was just so warm, first of all.
I
And
knew it.
Love
it
it.
was like it was one of those most surreal moments because I'm sure all of us we've watched her. I feel like she raised me. She truly is someone that we could have a whole episode about how much I love Miss Oprah Winfrey. But the one thing that I took from her was, again, the work I do is in, inclusion, equity, diversity work. And I took from her that, you can really, really be inclusive without saying a word. She
Mm,
and I, of course, we talked a lot. We engaged preparing for this, for the premiere of Sydney, the documentary. And with all the hoopla, she has her handlers, she has her publicist, she has her,
mm,
Gail King's there, and she's producing kind of the segment we're doing. So she's all in there. And no matter where we were in the circles of things, she always made sure that she had line of sight with me. She always made sure if we were doing a team huddle, if her back was to me, she looked behind and she made sure she opened the space to ensure I was a part of it. When she was done the interview, she came backstage and said, How was it? How did you think I did? Was it okay? She was actually interested in our feedback, in my feedback specifically,
wow.
She asked me about, what the reviews and what I thought about what they were saying about it. It was her presence, of course, is an awe, but the fact that she was so inclusive and including me just by her body language. And
Hmm.
when again, in the craziness of everything, when it's time to go, because if you can imagine, festival, it is fast, things are going,
Right.
coming, getting ready for the next carpet. It's a whirlwind. And ensuring that she was exiting the building safely with, again, all of her staff and her handlers and security. And I was just focused making sure she got in. And when she got into her vehicle at the end of our time together, she held the door and she actually came back out to look at me and said, "Thank you. Seriously, thank you for all that you did. I know it was a lot." And
Wow.
again, in true Oprah spirit, there's a circus going on. Okay, you all
Hmm.
have to understand. It's mayhem. As much as we try to keep it under wraps, fans were out there yelling galore. We had to shut the street down. The police did not like us that day because, of course, the Oprah frenzy that we're trying to keep under wraps. It was a circus, okay. And in the midst of all the busyness, and she needs to go catch her flight, etc., she made a point to stop, hold the door, turn back around to look at me, find me, to say thank you. She made me feel so seen. So, so, so seen. And that is something I will take with me for forever, and something I want to share with folks, that it does not take a lot to make people feel seen, to make people feel included. If
Hmm.
Miss Oprah Winfrey and all the frenzy that was going on around her had the capacity to make sure that I felt included and seen,
Mhm.
none of us have any excuse. So yeah, Miss
Wow.
Winfrey, I forever am, in awe of her and her grace, even after all this
Wow.
time. So humble and down to
Wow.
earth. Yeah.
Isn't it Maya Angelou who said it people won't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel, right? That's amazing.
That
I
part.
mean, and that's a skill, right?
It
That's the
is.
skill, and there's some bravery that comes with being that way, I think, in being able to go, I'm confident in where I am, and I'm confident and brave enough to be vulnerable and say, "Hey, was that okay?" I mean, to actually ask for feedback. That's huge. That's very huge.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
And still open to criticism even. One of the articles I was written in one of the reviews wasn't it to the liking, that she
Mhm.
was anticipating. But the fact that she was still open to reading it and reviewing it, and we cracked a little joke about it, but she was still invested in hearing feedback, right? And determining for
Right.
herself, it was very clear she knew, okay, whose feedback to really take in and really
Mm,
analyze, and the ones that just roll off your back. But I love that she wasn't too big and too
mhm,
famous and too rich to follow feedback, to listen to feedback, to ask for feedback, to make
mhm.
people feel included. I just Miss Oprah Winfrey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pivotal moment for you. That's
Ah,
awesome.
I was backstage boo-hooing. My
Yeah.
stage producer, she's just holding me, letting me just cry on her bosom. It was a whole scene. And my team was just amazing. They knew it was a big moment for me. So they're like, okay, Barb is technically off today because she's just processing all the emotions. And if you understand the story of also Sidney Poitier, he reminds me a lot of actually my late father, hearing the stories and the process of bringing the story to life and what Sydney stood for. So I was crying about Oprah, I was crying about Sydney, I was crying about the family who just embraced me like their own. I was just a hot mess.
A hot mess in a good way.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
In a
And I'm
good way.
sure you handled it with grace.
Yeah, I tried. I hope so. Yeah.
Well, I like the way you ruled it to your father because do
Yeah.
you have lessons from your father you want to talk about?
Oh my goodness. My father, lessons of my father. He my father is someone who I didn't realize it till after he passed, but he was like pretty much my first best friend.
Oh,
So he would take me to, as I was telling you earlier, I was always involved in extracurricular activities. So it was him taking me to skating practice, to gymnastic practice, to my brownies, to sleepovers. He was that person for me. And I remember as I was getting older, and I was very, very shy as a young girl, like very shy to the point where my parents actually sought out therapy and I had therapists to help me through my
Mm,
shyness. It was a concern. The
mm.
irony of where I am today, making making a living public speaking. I don't know. Go figure. Go figure. But as I got, older and I started to get more involved in extracurricular activities in a more leadership role, my dad was always someone who was about community and giving back. And I remember at that time he was working for the UN out in East Timor. So we would just communicate. That was back in the day where we'd send faxes. For those that are listening, for our younger listeners, I don't know if you're familiar with the fax, but it was how we used to communicate back in the day. So we would communicate that way back and forth. And I remember it was a big deal for me. Grade 8, I became the class president, the school president. And so that was a big deal, starting my
Mhm.
political journey. My dad, I remember saying he was so proud. He was so proud that, especially understanding my journey of being so shy and the quiet girl in the
right.
back of the classroom to now I'm the student body president. It was a nice flex for me, I'm not going to lie.
Of course,
And
yeah.
yes, so one of the lessons he said to me is he said, Barb, this is you're now, starting a journey of being a leader, and there's something that for whatever reason people are taking to you and are trusting you to be in this position. So don't take it for granted. And the my northern star that I got from him is be soft on people, but be tough on problems.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm,
Be soft on people, tough on problems.
Yeah.
And that is what keeps me going when I want
wow.
to give up or when I I want to be harsh on someone, and
Yeah.
ugh, and colorful language comes up in my head, and I
Yep.
keep remembering the person is not who I'm gonna come for. I'm not attacking the person. I'm not gonna be hard on the person. I need to be hard and persistent on the problem, on what
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Mm,
solve for. And so that's been my approach in how I work, how I live, how I play, how I interact, is
wow.
really focusing on the challenge and the gap that I'm trying to fill. And it's kind of my guide to empathy, essentially, having a bit more empathy and compassion for people.
Oh,
That really
God.
speaks to me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, can you imagine what the world would be like if leaders of countries and companies and just if they led that way?
Teachers,
Teachers, yeah, yeah. If they led that
Yeah,
way, how
yeah.
different this world would be.
maybe
Mm.
parents.
Yeah,
Parents. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh my
absolutely.
God.
It's
Very
big.
profound words from your
Mhm.
dad.
Mm.
Your dad sounds amazing.
You
Mm.
said in that was the beginning of your political aspirations. Do you have other political aspirations?
No, I'm not a politician. For a while, actually, while I was, fun fact, while I was the class president at Dolphin Senior Public School, that was my middle school. Growing up, our prime minister at the time, Jean Chrétien, was
Mm.
on tour, on his political tour, campaign tour, and he stopped at our school. And so I was a person who was with him on the tour and was doing speeches with him. And
Oh my.
yes, so he at the time, him and his staff and some of his other, MPs said, I think you're going to be a future prime minister if you keep up with this. They were really impressed, I guess, with my presentation and how I handled it. And so that was kind of a seed that was planted, and my parents kind of kept that over my head. Okay, you're going to be future prime minister. And never say never, but I think my skill set and my passion really lies outside of politics, and there are folks that are really good at doing the politics game. I do
Hmm.
see it as a game in a lot of ways.
Mm,
Sorry, not sorry. But
same.
that's not my wheelhouse. I think I
Hmm.
have more impact outside of the world of politics.
It's too
Hmm.
bad because that compassion, it just could be really used in politics now.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I still plan
Hmm.
on being in their ears. Like,
Okay,
let me
good.
be
Good.
clear, Jennifer. I still
Good.
plan on being on their ears from when I was even in high school. I was that student where I was just such a busybody, where I would be writing letters to the president of, out in Colombia about a political prisoner, and you need to let them out. And I was that
Wow.
person when having campaigns. I actually did that in honor of my father's passing, because he came
Wow.
here through Amnesty International. He also was a political prisoner speaking
Oh,
out
wow.
against, yeah, injustices in Sudan at the time. And so I have that advocacy in me. I think
Hmm.
it may come from my
Hmm.
my father. So I've always been that person where if send me the petition, let me sign it. Let me go to City Hall and speak to these leaders. I'm very comfortable doing that for whatever for whatever
Well,
reason.
no, but I think that's awesome. You're an
Yeah.
involved citizen of the world.
Yeah.
That's admirable. Oh my God,
I
that's so huge.
I appreciate that, Raquel. I really do. And I think we put a lot of value, prestige to folks that have these official titles of, like, I am the
Hmm.
PM, or I'm working with these politicians, where I've
Hmm.
always said, parents,
Yeah.
the conversations you're having with your children as you tuck them in at bed, the
Yes.
conversations you're having with your partner. I say this to one of my good girlfriends. I'm like, the influence you have on your cisgendered white male husband, more impact than I could
Yes.
ever have. Like, that is real impact, the conversations you're having with him as you're putting him to
Yes.
bed, as you're like that. I think there's influence there. I think we all need to respect our lanes and, know your
Hmm.
limit, play within it. So I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to be running for any kind of political role, but my strength is in writing. I've
Hmm.
always written for publications, whether it's, like I said, Huffington Post, or writing a book, working with publishers. Now I'm doing a lot of that, or doing
Hmm.
sessions with leaders in organizations. I think, again, back to that kind of wokeness, snobness, where it's like, what are you doing? You haven't
Yeah.
posted? Where's your black square? Where's your hashtag? And I,
Yeah.
Mm,
I say to that, well, you know what? You're not with me at night as I'm having tough conversations
Yeah.
with You know what I mean? My partner that may be racist, that may be a misogynist, that may just have blind spots when it comes to just
Hmm.
equity, and
Yeah.
inclusion and diversity. So thank you for, saluting me for playing that role. And there's so many roles that so many of us are engaging in that doesn't get the recognition that I wish they would get. And parents and
Mm,
partners, and
mm,
they my hat's off to you because that is ongoing. For me, I can put my DI hat off and go and just do what I want to do. As a parent, you have to consistently train,
yeah.
grow, reinforce those learnings.
Well, I
Yeah.
find my girls, they have really pushed my growth. They had the conversations
Mm,
with me. I remember the first time they came to me and said, "We don't like you telling us that our skirts are too short. Quit dress coding us, mom." And I had to really look at myself and be like, if I had boys, would I be dress coding them? Would I be telling
mm,
them and I had to really look at my own shit basically and be like, you're
Yeah.
right. It's your body. They're your clothes. You decide what you're wearing to school. And maybe that is because I had an open environment so my kids could tell me that, but I have learned so much from them.
Oh,
So much. And the kids nowadays, just the different way they approach gender from the way that we approach
hmm,
gender. It's just fantastic.
I
hmm.
agree with you, Jennifer. We can learn so much. You know what? You're right. Children actually are my biggest teachers. I spent actually quite a couple of years working with about 10 school boards across Canada
Oh,
and
cool.
dozens of schools. So I went on a book tour pretty much of like my book, but also sharing other stories of just trailblazers, both here in Canada and the States, globally.
Hmm.
And I always left feeling more like I always left feeling, wow, I came here with the expectation that I'm going to educate and school you. But humble pie, the big piece of humble pie that was given to me. I remember actually doing a presentation, a little quick story for you. I was doing a presentation, a storytelling, and at the end of it, they were probably in grade one, maybe two students.
Hmm.
And at the end of it, this little boy, little white boy, really like, pale skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, he looks up at me and says, "Oh, wow, you're really black. You're really dark." And the teacher, his teacher assistant, her face went bright red. She was so
Oh.
embarrassed. She's frazzled. Johnny, we're gonna call him Johnny. Johnny, you don't say that. And oh my gosh, Johnny, don't say. She started frazzled. I said, wait. I said, it's okay. Can I continue my conversation with Johnny? Is that okay? Teacher said, okay. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, no apologies necessary. I started talking with Johnny. I said, Johnny, you know where I'm from? I'm from Uganda, and I'm showing on the map where I'm from. I said, the children there, and I'm showing pictures of what the children there look like. I said, there was a man that came to visit the children, right, in this town, and he looked like you. He had your skin, he had your hair color and texture, your eyes. I said, you know what happened? All the children ran away from him. They started to run away and they said, oh my goodness, look at, there's a ghost, there's a ghost. Why is the skin like that? There's a ghost, there's a ghost. And Johnny starts to laugh. And they said later, then, the gentleman came and they touched his skin and they saw he has eyes and a nose like us and a mouth and he has arms and they start to play. And later they realize like, oh, he has different skin, but he's just like us. He likes to kick the ball around. He likes to play. And Johnny later said, oh my goodness, if I were those children, I'd be scared of him too. I think he's a ghost. And in that interaction, we realized we were able to talk about our different identities and
Hmm.
colors, and there's nothing wrong. Like I want you to see my rich, my rich complexion, Mel. I want to see his skin. I want to see his blue eyes, and we can talk about it, and it's beautiful. But what I find, and I'm bringing this back to Jennifer, your point of children really teach us a lot is sometimes we project our own insecurities, our own
Hmm.
embarrassments on children, and we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
really appreciate the innocence in what they're saying.
Yeah.
I took no offense to what he said. I am a very, for those that are listening, you may not be able to see, but I'm a richly melanated woman and I love it. And any moment that I can embrace to talk about it, I'm here for it. It is who I am. And so, really, actually, what that experience taught me was, hi, teacher assistant, is there something that we need to unpack as far as
Right.
me
Yes.
identifying as a
Yes.
dark skinned black
Yes.
woman that this young boy, this little kid was able to identify. There's something else that we need to unpack there, teacher, and
Yeah.
so to your point, Jennifer, I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes
Yeah.
children are such a catalyst for learning for us adults, and it's so in our face that we have to kind of address it because it's so in our face.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to think, oh, what was I
What was
thinking that
I
I was unaware of, or
Mhm.
where was that coming
coming
where did
from?
I learn this?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's really
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Earlier, we talked about how do you create safe psychological spaces for people to just feel safe and to open up and to
Yeah.
talk. And that story is an example of how you do that. That's amazing. And that's an example of just an everyday situation being an opportunity for learning new things and unlearning the conditioning that we've all been programmed with.
You said it. You said it.
You are doing such amazing work, Barbara.
Oh,
I get the sense that you do it from a place of like calling people in as opposed to calling people out. And that is so important. You're not doing the whole wagging the finger. You have to do
no.
this. You have to. No, you're going, look, we all have to learn new things. And
Yes.
it's good to learn these things. This is a
Uh,
positive situation. It's a chance to
Absolutely.
learn.
Because I want that same grace when I will inevitably fuck up. I'm going to
Yeah.
drop the ball. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. I'm going to have a blind spot. I'm going to have a bias
Mhm.
that's going to be so loud and clear to everyone else but me. And
Yeah.
I hope I want to be, again, let's lead by example. I want to show you
Yeah.
the grace that I want to receive from you. And I hope and pray and wish you will correct me and call me
Hmm.
in with that same grace. Because honestly, what it comes down to, ladies, for me, I want to be a good ancestor. I
Yes.
That's really what it comes down to. So I'm not about the business of shaming and blaming. And to those that have been shamed and blamed from the work in the name of the work of DEI, I apologize. And I can appreciate the pushback. I can appreciate it. I work in the DEI space and I am even having some pushback, right?
Mhm.
Because there's this
Hmm.
pretentiousness and this what do you mean you don't know about? Right now, I'm reading
Yeah.
a book called The 21 Things You Didn't Know About the Indian Act. Great book by
Mm.
Bob Joseph. It is amazing. And the things in there, I'm embarrassed I didn't even know about this, like being a
Hmm.
Canadian citizen. But that's the beauty of it. I'm more interested that we're invested in learning and growing and evolving than
Hmm.
being this autocorrect person policing everyone and what they said and you used the wrong pronoun and that's not how I identify. We'll get there. We'll get there and
Hmm.
we'll get to a common ground, but let's have that intention of wanting to again get it right, right? Let's get it right versus being right.
That's so important. Have
Yeah.
you, in your working with companies, have you ever had a successful situation when, how do I phrase this question? When the organization says they want diversity, inclusion training, but the sense is it's just by name and the CEO or whoever isn't really present. They're putting on
Mhm.
a presentation or bringing you in for
It's
you to do your work, but they're not. Oh,
performative.
I'm not saying this right, but
Performative without the actual buy-in.
performative on the level of the maybe the CEO, but the employees really want more inclusion. So this presentation happens, but the up above people don't really join into the conversation. Can you ever be successful if that's the case?
You
Mhm.
need the leaders buy-in. So I do not work with organizations, companies, leaders, if your leadership team isn't bought in and they're
Mhm.
not involved. So my sessions I have specifically for leaders. Like that is actually what started my consulting work because usually the buy-in you have from the majority of the organizations from the employees,
Mhm.
it has to
Mhm.
come from the top. So
Yeah.
I've been asked by, whether it's employee resource groups or HR. Usually I work with a lot of HR, departments and
Mhm.
teams, people and culture and teams, and my first question is, where's your executive team? I want to talk to your
Mm,
CEO. I want to talk to your CEO because I'm very aware that DEI is a checkbox. I don't
mhm,
know. I'm not too familiar with how things are in the States, but in Canada, there are legislations around like DEI requirements.
mhm.
So they're just
So a lot
one
of it's just
thing
like
off
check
the
mark. Yep.
list.
Yeah, we had
Yep.
Barbara come in and talk for an hour check. So for me, I require buy-in from your executive leadership and specifically your CEO, your board of directors, and I want to see your strategy. I want to see your actual DEI
Oh,
year over year EDI strategy.
brilliant.
Doesn't have to be
Yeah.
perfect, but I want to know that there's thought put into it. Oftentimes these strategies
Brilliant.
change, evolve. You have to tweak it. You should be tweaking it to go with the times and where your culture is. But
Mhm,
those are the components and pieces that I always ask for before moving forward. So if an employee resource group reaches out to me wanting me to come, I appreciate it, and I'm so humbled that I'm called, but I'm not here to do a checkbox. I'm here for sustainable change,
mm,
right? It needs to be sustainable. So again, from the top. And usually that's a bit
Yeah.
slower. That changes it's slower, so people don't like
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I've ever worked for a company where I thought that they took sexual harassment issues seriously, DEI issues seriously. It does seem to me a lot of these things are sort of mandated training that is, what was the word you used before? Performative
Performative.
rather than is there actual
Mhm.
buy-in, and it's someone who works for the organization. It's often disheartening.
Mhm,
It's very disheartening. Jennifer, I'm right there with you. It's very disheartening. And I am inspired, encouraged, motivated that we as people, everyday people, we have a lot of power and influence. You
mhm,
you see cancel culture. I often roll my eyes at cancel culture, but it is very real. And
mhm.
organizations are now, it's not lost on them that it just takes
It's
one
true.
Mhm.
individual in the
Yeah.
backing, and you are going under. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not here to discuss it, but that's where we are. Cancel culture is real, and it doesn't take a lot to have the momentum of people backing up whatever that may be. I mean, in
Mhm.
Canada, the protests are very real as far as equitable pay and fair
Right.
compensation, and there are active contingency plans in place because these strikes are, it's just like one after the other. People
Right.
are really tired, and I think it's also coming to a point where people, their backs are up against the wall when they're the skyrocketing prices of just living, and
Mhm.
then with the social climate as well, folks are just,
Mhm.
they're at a loss. It's almost like I got nothing to lose. I need to speak up because I this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm starting to see some trends. Again, I can only speak about Canada. I'm not too familiar with
Mm.
the States, but where organizations are really understanding we can't afford to turn a blind eye, because
Right.
employees are going to make it, front cover news.
Right. Listening to you talking about this, as precarious as things are right now,
Yeah.
I hear optimism from you
Mhm.
that these things can be done, that safe spaces can be created, that change can happen. What is on the horizon for you? Like where do you see the work that you're doing, say 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Well, right now, majority of the work I do is in Canada. I do work a bit with in the States, but it's majority
Mhm,
in Canada. And to my point earlier, we are more interconnected than ever before
mhm,
across these artificial colonized built borders, as I
mhm,
call them.
I like
mhm.
it.
Yeah, yeah, you like it, eh, Jennifer?
I
So
like it.
I see myself going past those borders, and really I'm
Yes.
so grateful for technology. While it comes with its challenges, I'm so grateful that we're able to really connect and find our tribe and people. And
Mhm.
that's where I find my inspiration is that the media, the news really thrive on highlighting the negativity and the
Yep.
division. And I'm not
Mhm,
naive in thinking that the division isn't there and that there is ugly in the world. There's no
mhm,
denying that.
mhm.
And there are a lot of folks that are in alignment with what we're talking about, which is
Yep.
equitable workspaces, inclusion, really embracing diversity, belonging, justice, just leveling out the playing field as best as possible for everyone, right? And
Mhm,
I think leaning into that knowing, that's what's going to propel us forward. We can't get
mhm,
boggled down. And that's why I'm very mindful of the content I take in and the news I watch,
Mm.
And I try to keep even the news that I watch, stay informed, but keep it diverse as far as the different outlets that
Yeah.
I'm getting, so I can get as much as a full rounded, perspective. But I truly believe that us leaning into the fact that there are more of us that want good and that want to be good ancestors,
Mhm.
that's what's going to propel us forward. So moving forward in the next 5, 10 years, I see myself working with more wonderful ladies like yourselves in engaging conversations and doing this good work internationally.
Oh, yes.
I'm very interested, like in North America, we're very focused on race. But when I'm like back home in Uganda, the idea of race is very foreign to them. I mean, it's not like they're
Yeah.
naive to it, but that's not the challenges they have. Their inclusion
Yeah.
challenges are maybe tribal, and cultural.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
they like a lot of my cousins are trying to wrap their head around like the whole Black Lives Matter movement even in March. So you
Mhm.
march down the street declaring that your life matters. Why? Like they actually laugh at it. They
Yeah.
don't understand what we're dealing with. So
Mhm.
I'm interested in my consulting work to really understand the nuances of different DEI challenges in just different regions and areas of the world and seeing how I can do good, how I can learn. Like that's first and foremost,
Mhm.
I'm a student. So that's what I see. And it's just engaging in more conversations like this wonderful one I've been having with both of you and exemplifying that we can be in conversations, we can
Mhm.
disagree, we can agree, and we can still, lead with love and light. We need
Hmm.
more
Mhm.
of love and light in this world. Ugh.
Mhm.
Was there anything that you wanted to tell our audience that we didn't give you the opportunity?
I'm all about, like I said, I love people. I love to connect with people. So, you can find me on LinkedIn, Barbara Yebuga. I'm on my website, barbarayebuga.com. I'm also on Instagram. So you can find me, and don't be shy to reach out, share what you're working on to, keep the momentum in this important work. How are you advocating or living in an equitable, inclusive, diverse way? Like I'm always about learning from other people and how they're doing it. So let's continue to build this community, and please feel free to reach out to me on any of those platforms.
And all of that will be in our show notes. So,
Beautiful. Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Great,
Oh.
great, great, great. And any organizations that are looking for development, I should have mentioned that.
Mhm.
Any organizations, companies where you're looking for support on where to begin, how to move forward with your DEI strategy. It doesn't need to be this scary, overwhelming process. Spoiler alert, the work never gets done. So
Mhm.
it never ends. So
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
I like to manage that
Mhm.
expectation, and you're gonna get it wrong. And failure is encouraged because it shows you're trying and you're learning and growing and evolving. So I thrive and really enjoy supporting leaders in that journey of figuring out where their place is in the DEI space within their organization. So feel free to reach out to discuss that and see how I can support you, your team, your organization. On my website, you can see the workshops that I facilitate, but I also customize them to, again, the unique needs of organizations.
Barbara, you are delightful. I'm so excited for the work that you do. Thank you for doing it. And thank you for being with us today to talk about all of this.
Thank you both. It's
Thank
been
you.
such a pleasure. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Raquel.
You're very welcome. I am blown away by Barbara and the work that she does and the energy that she brings to it
Hmm.
and the way that she approaches the work, right? Like I said before, it's calling people in rather than calling people out.
It's so much different than what I've seen out there in practice.
Yeah.
Having been involved in diversity, equity, inclusion, and jobs in the
Yeah.
past,
Mhm.
what I saw a lot of times was not exactly silence, but what you were talking about being not in a safe space, not feeling like you
Mhm.
can say what you want to say. Number one, because you might be calling out the up aboves about something, but
Mhm.
more so being afraid you might ask a dumb question
Yeah.
or say something wrong or not be politically correct or say something that's offensive without knowing that it's offensive.
Yeah.
And all that fear sort of shuts down the conversation.
Absolutely.
I love what Barbara said about be prepared to fail, because in the failure we're learning. I'm paraphrasing. She didn't say it exactly like that, but it was like, that's what was missing from the hearts and minds of the people doing this work, was that they were so, I have to get this right. I have to say it exactly the way it's supposed to be said, instead of, I have to feel it. I have to learn and feel it, instead of getting the words 100% right.
Right. And to just say, you're going to fuck up. You're going to make mistakes. A, you're human. B, this is new to you. You're going to fuck up. That's part of the learning. That's
and we don't
part
know
of the
what
growth.
we don't know.
Exactly. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And if you don't step out a little bit and say something, you're never going to find out. You're never going to know. The way that Barbara is doing this work, she's encouraging that growth. It's not just, like she said, it's not just checking a box. That's key.
I feel that her work comes from this space. She said it, her love of people. She loves people. I feel just the love just pouring out of her. Love, acceptance, leadership, direction.
Yeah.
A way to, a path to move forward on, something that makes sense, like hope. Like there's hope in what she says.
Yeah. Yeah. And she
Hire her.
wants people. Yeah, exactly. Everybody hire her. Yeah.
Straighten this world out.
She wants people to get better. She wants people to grow.
Yeah. What a
she
beautiful
wants people
thing.
to have these opportunities to just be better. And we can do this. We can be better. And she shows that in the work that she's doing, and the way that she communicates her message, and the way that she talks about the topics, and the way that she talks about people. Listening to her talk about her dad, I'm like, I wish I'd met her dad. I mean, that.
And Oprah. I want to meet Oprah too.
And Oprah. Yeah. And Oprah. I mean, that joy for people, that love for people is infused in everything that she does. That is key. Man, how fortunate are we as a society to have people like Barbara doing the work that she does? It's amazing. So glad we got to talk to her today.
Oh, me too. It was so great. Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer.
Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast, or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.